Hey guys, how you doing? Thought I'd do a video today for my house, for my home. So a little bit different. Just got home, ate some pizza. It's my night off, my day off tomorrow. So get hype. um, a fellow posted a comment by the name of Mick West. Posted a comment on one of my more popular videos, which is entitled "Get Fucked Rex Murphy." It's a video I did while in a depression. I was very upset with Rex Murphy um, and that kind of whole crew of people, honestly, from the National Post. And so I made a very short and brisk episode about how much I dislike Rex Murphy, and I still do. I've since made more well articulated videos than that particular one. Um, so it's a learning lesson for me that when you speak out of anger, that's what people are going to see the most. And this fellow Mick West challenged me to speak about Justin Trudeau. I have spoken about Justin Trudeau many times on this channel. I've spoken about the Liberal Party and their role here, but I figure what the heck. Challenge accepted, gauntlet dropped. Hope you see it, Mick. Hope you see it. So let's start very simply by placing the Liberals where they are. The Liberals are a right-wing party. They are not a left-wing party. They are only left to the Conservatives because the Conservatives have gone so far to the right and have accepted clear and overt and obvious fascists into their ranks. People like Derek Sloan, for example. Like Derek Sloan is an open fascist in that party for sure. And Aaron O'Toole has definitely leaned the party further to the right than it's been in a long time. Further right than Andrew Scheer was willing to take it. Further right than even Stephen Harper had it. Like, Stephen Harper understood that there were social conservatives in his party, but he didn't court them the way that Aaron O'Toole has courted them. The So the Liberal Party exists as a right wing party here in Canada. They are true to that adage. They run their campaigns on the left, but they rule from the right. And that's been historically true, and it's no different for the Trudeau Liberals. Justin Trudeau himself. Justin Trudeau himself seems to be something of a centrist, right? Like um, he really is just a kind of toe the line, do what the people around him say that he should do. I don't necessarily think that Justin Trudeau is an idea man or pulling any strings or any of that kind of thing. I think that he is a man who was born with his father's name, his father being a long-standing politician uh, who helped usher in the universal healthcare system that we currently have. Um, a fairly popular leader in his own right. Uh, Justin Trudeau gets power because he runs against Stephen Harper as well as Tom Mulcair right after the death of Jack Layton. The NDP fumble this election very badly, in my view. I think that this was their election to lose, and they worked very hard to lose it. And Justin Trudeau came out swinging, came out scrappy, came out young, came out um, with promises that he didn't keep. Uh, which, I mean, what do you expect from right wingers? The uh, and since then, since this first election win, where he definitely walked away from the first past the post promise. He kept the marijuana thing, which I'm like, okay. Like, you made a plant legal. Good for you. A plant that shouldn't have been made illegal in the first place. Okay, good. You did it. But since then, he's really not done much of anything for anyone of any value. Um, the kind of faux desire to help with green energy and take on climate change while buying pipelines and telling the oil industry that nothing fundamentally changes. I mean, the liberals are very much, in many ways, the liberals are worse than the conservatives. And I've been saying this for a long time, that conservatives will just tell you. They'll just tell you that, like, okay, you're poor because it's your fault. You are not helping, so this is a you problem. We're just going to abandon you, cut your services, and that'll make the society better. And if you don't think so, you're weak. Right? That's the conservative perspective, right? And they'll just tell you that. It's evil. It's duplicitous. It's not duplicitous, but it's evil, and it's definitely a position that we should only take seriously insofar that we have to defend against it. And it's something made even darker by the fact that the conservatives are walking around clutching a Bible while saying it. So, but it's not a lie, right? It's what they genuinely believe, which is why I call the conservatives an ideological death cult. Liberals, on the other hand, liberals will, Justin Trudeau included, liberals will tell you a story that you want to hear, right? And it'll be a left-leaning, help everybody story. And then once they have been given power, they'll do the opposite. Like, really think about how dark and sinister it is to say that they run on the left but lead on the right. Like, that's duplicitous. Like, at its heart, it's completely duplicitous to do that. And many people, like, this is in my view is how Donald Trump gets elected in the United States, that many people just started to realize, like, oh, if the choice is between a guy who's going to tell me he's going to punch me in the face and then punches me in the face, and someone who tells me they're not going to punch me in the face and then they do punch me in the face, I'm going to choose the guy that tells me he's going to punch me in the face, because then at least he's not lying to me about it. And I think that's my position on the Liberal Party and on Justin Trudeau generally, that they will tell you what you want to hear, and then when it comes time to actually put that into action, they have no problem doing what benefits them and their donors. I don't have much love for the Liberals, and I don't think much of Justin Trudeau. I do think that of all the politicians that are in Canada, I like Justin Trudeau as a person the most. I relate to him quite a great deal. He's a drama teacher. I have a degree in theater. I think that everything I've seen of him, he looks like he would be a interesting, empathetic, caring sort of a person. I just think that he's being fed lines of bullshit by sociopaths and by people who are interested in maintaining their own power, and he lacks the wherewithal to understand that that's the case. He believes that the people who are giving him information are trying to help Canadians instead of what is real, which is that the people who are giving him information are trying to help themselves. With the kind of expulsion of Bill Morneau from and the rise of Chrystia Freeland, things have been forced to shift for Trudeau. That he is put into a position now where he actually does have to pass legislation to help people. Because if he doesn't, the people who are voting for him will abandon him, right? As they have done in the past. The Liberal Party has been abandoned en masse. Literally, before Justin Trudeau became the leader of the party, the Liberal Party was decimated because the Canadian populace just came to the conclusion that the Liberals were just conservatives, which was true. That the Ignatieff and the Martin and to an extent the Chrétien Liberals, the Dion Liberals, were just conservatives, right? They didn't have any ideas. They didn't have any intention on structurally fixing the system to help anyone. And so the populace just came to the obvious conclusion, which is, well, if you're going to just be conservatives, then we'll just let the conservatives have at it. right? Fuck you. And that's when the Orange Wave happened, because we all anyone on the left swung over to the NDP, but just enough people swung over to the conservative side that it allowed Stephen Harper to secure his first and only majority. So now we're in this kind of position where you have the Liberals are being forced into a position now where they actually have to pass legislation because they're in a minority government situation, right? They have a flanking, they have an opposition party in the Conservatives, which are on about as much equal footing in terms of power in the House, right? And in terms of power in the populace, the Conservatives on the right. And you have the NDP threatening and flanking from the left. This is exactly the structure that got us our universal healthcare system. That the NDP were threatening from the left, the Conservatives were the leaders of the opposition, and the Liberals were in a minority government. And they knew that they had to actually pass popular legislation that the NDP were putting forward, which at the time was a universal healthcare. And I'm hoping that Jagmeet Singh has enough political awareness to realize this and put forward basic income legislation as his bar for what he expects. But the reality is, like, if the Liberals were in a majority government, just look at their majority governments, right? The Liberal majority governments were basically just right-wing conservative governments, right? There was no major deficit spending. There was no major initiatives to actually help anybody, right? They legalized marijuana, but like that's not a left wing issue. Like that's actually a right wing issue, right? Allow businesses to sell marijuana. People should have the freedom to use whatever substance they want. These are right wing talking points. These are right wing issues. And honestly, like the marijuana thing, I'm just like, it was a plant. It should have been never made illegal in the first place. I'm not going to give credit to somebody for legalize something that should have never been made illegal in the first place. Like, good for you. You did like the basement bare minimum of intelligent thinking. Oh, maybe instead of throwing a whole bunch of people in prison for having a plant in their possession, we should not do that. Oh, that doesn't make you good or smart, right? That just makes you basic. Like, that's very basic. And that's what I consider the like most basic level to for me to even begin thinking that I should support you. But Trudeau backing out of the first past the post promise, the election reform promise. I mean that the only way I will ever even contemplate putting my support behind the Liberal Party is if they pass a basic income, and I think that should be the bar for the populace. I don't think that we should take anything the Liberals say seriously, right? They've proven to be adept liars. They've proven to be adept at manipulating popular opinion, and this, in my view, makes them in many ways worse than the Conservatives, as I've said before, because at least the Conservatives aren't lying to us about their intentions, right? At least they're being really upfront that, oh, you're poor? You're going to stay that way. The Liberals will say, oh, yeah, we'll help you. And no, you'll stay that way. Yeah, so that's my thoughts. So my thoughts on Justin Trudeau directly. I hope he starts to realize that he's the most powerful man in Canada. And I hope he starts to realize that the people who are talking to him are doing so to help themselves. I hope he begins to take a larger perspective on his role. I hope that he starts to understand that he goes to climate change rallies while the rest of us look at him and go, you're the boss. Like, you could just make laws to make things happen, right? And his hesitation or his unwillingness to do it shows you that he's not very confident as the person who's in charge. Like, he doesn't really have ideas. He doesn't really have thoughts. He goes to the oil industry and says, hey, this climate change thing, what can we do about it? And the oil industry says, well, we got to pump as much oil as we possibly can and sell it to China. And of course they're going to say that because it makes them money. It has nothing to do with climate change. And they put a little spin on it, like, oh yeah, and then we'll use the money that we make from that, and that will help with climate change. Meanwhile, they're sitting on hundreds of billions of dollars in offshore accounts, and it's like, it's just stupidity at this point, right? And I mean, Justin Trudeau is just a prince, right? His ascension to power follows very closely the Machiavellian idea of how power works, in that he had a familiar name. That's it. Machiavelli said straight out, if the choice is between a leader with a familiar name that has led in the past or one that does not, the populace will go with a familiar name. And that's exactly what happened. But Trudeau's not necessarily a good leader, right? I think he's a good man. I do. I think he is a good man. But I don't think he's a particularly good leader. And now he's being led to the trough, so to speak. That the populace as well, that it is actually the populace that's doing the work here. That the populace gave him a minority government. That the populace is putting pressure on him. That the universe has forced a pandemic down his throat to force him to actually pass the CERB, which forced everybody to go, oh, these basic income style projects work. They work, and they're affordable, and they're better for us than not doing it and what we're doing before. And it's forcing us to confront the propaganda and lies that have come from the right in regards to what a deficit is, why deficit spending is fine. Like, deficit spending is fine. And once you understand how the government works and how the economy actually functions, you come to realize that, like, deficits are fine. And the Liberals are steadily starting to put that together, that these 40 years that we've had under capitalist rule have been a disaster for anybody who makes less than $100,000 a year. Like, we're working harder than we have before. We're seeing our wages stagnate. We're seeing a decline. There's a generational loss of freedom that has happened over these last 40 years. And it's completely because we've been moving forward on a set of absurdly false assumptions. Assumptions like governments are businesses, which they're not. Assumptions like if poor people spend money, it vanishes, which is absurd. Like, and we're confronting these realities and starting to come to terms with what governments are, what they do, what they can do. And really realizing that, the capitalist class is fundamentally worthless and should be expelled from our society. Someone like Trudeau is never going to do that, but he may be willing to do a minor reform to the capitalist structure through a basic income. And it's the populace that might be forcing him to do it. So we'll see. I think Trudeau's legacy will be completely wrapped up in his decision at the throne speech. That will be his legacy. Whether or not he's just a worthless conservative who should be dumped out off the side of the boat, or whether or not he's actually an empathetic human who's capable of making decisions to help the populace. All right, Mick. That was for you, bud. Mick West. I hope you're doing well. Have fun out there. Have a smoke. Go meet your neighbors. Yeah. Bye-bye.